Managing the threats, there's so many tools and skills, y'all. Part of the challenge is the stigma attached to it, right? We want to be strong. We come from a community where we have a couple of stereotypes that are somewhat positive in nature, but can have very negative implications for our physical and mental health. One is being strong and resilient. You always hear we're resilient people, we're strong people, which we are. However, that doesn't mean what we've gone through and what we've survived has not had an impact. And here are some ways that you can treat and manage this impact. I want you to practice being aware and kind to yourself in the moment of when things are happening, as opposed to blaming yourself. Sometimes we don't know how to respond, and that's okay. That's why we have professionals to help us with that. And so we can be hard on ourselves and we can be very tough. And I want us to practice being more kind to ourselves and patient with ourselves. We also want to build a support network. And so we want to make certain that we have a support of people around us that can help us, that we can be vulnerable with. Not people that we have to maintain a facade with, but people that we can be vulnerable with. If spirituality plays a role in your life, you want to utilize your belief system in a way that liberates and not oppress, okay? So we want to make certain that if we are relying on spirituality, it's a spirituality that liberates and leads us to healing. We want to join groups that celebrate our culture and our ideas. We spend a lot of time trying to prove that we've been impacted. And as opposed to trying to prove we've been impacted, we need to do less of that and engage with people who understand that and be in community with those people. So you're not having to prove your humanity and show your humanity. We should become involved in social action. I think when we are able to not let things happen to us and push back against things that are impacting our community, that is empowering. But we have to have a delicate balance with that, right? Because that requires energy in of itself, and that's stressful in and of itself, and it could very well activate that toxic stress response. So we want to make certain that we have community and rest to balance that out, but we want to have social action. Our voices matter, y'all. Our action matters. There would not be such a major collective effort to steal voting rights, to shut down educational initiatives that would tell our true history if it weren't power in that. And so to be able to lean into that power is also empowering to fight back against these threats. I believe in engaging in pleasurable activities, and this is specific to sexual wellness, but this is also specific to overall wellness. We should be doing things that please us, that brings us joy, that brings us happiness. It is our birthright. And so I really invite you to ask, how much time in a week do you schedule pleasure, whatever that pleasure is? I think we should schedule pleasure, because pursuing pleasure in health and wellness in the face of systemic and structural oppression is the ultimate resistance. And we want to be able to identify our triggers. Pay attention to what's happening for you if your stress response is being activated. And you know your stress response is being activated when you feel your heart beating faster, you feel your palms sweating, or you feel kind of keyed up, or you just feel activated in your body. That's a stress response. And pay attention to when you feel that way in certain environments. Do you feel shut down? Do you feel empowered to speak? These are all things we need to learn to be mindful of. We've been so conditioned to just take and push through that we don't take a moment to really pause and say, wait, what's impacting me? What do I have control over managing? And how do I actively apply these tools that I've learned in our Wellness Wednesdays to manage these threats? There's tons of research on the reality that having a positive cultural identity, so in this case, a positive racial identity and gender and sexual identity, depending on your intersectional identity, leads to a strong sense of self, and it's very helpful when you are combating these race-related stresses and stereotype stress and imposter syndrome. So cultivating a positive, healthy identity, celebrating your culture, your contributions, being in community is a great way to combat and move through the stress of what's happening. And last, but most importantly, I believe, is seeking mental health support. Seeking out a therapist, seeking out workshops, seeking out groups that are offered by licensed clinicians. Healing takes time, space, intentionality, and skill. And I think that we have to be intentional about taking in that information that's coming to us in abundance. I think that's great, because I think that lays a foundational framework for people to understand where they are, how they're thriving, where they're not thriving, what areas need improvement. But there's no harm in needing help. And always we're going to need help. I believe fundamentally some of the answers we need to be life changing for us are locked up in other people. So think about what tools resonate with you. Really think about what are some of the signs and symptoms that you are managing, and specifically what tools do you need to manage them, and if you need to seek out mental health support, it is out there in abundance.